at Newfire. I'm the owner of IT company UITware. I'm also a speaker at conferences like DevOpsDays, Microsoft conferences, meetups, webinars. I'm Microsoft Q&A moderator, active member of Stack Overflow community. I'm also certified in different clouds, and I have big experience in implementation of DevSecOps in different projects and companies. What do you think? How much money company lose in average when the data breach or the hacker attack occurs? It is $1 million. If you can imagine, it's $4 million due to the latest report. And if we take a look into the industries, the top 3 industries that suffer from hacker attack, these are healthcare, energy, and financial. Yeah, definitely, because they're having the money. And how can we avoid this? How can we decrease the amount of hacker attacks or the amount of successful hacker attacks? Decrease the amount of money that the company loses because of these hacker steps, hacker attacks. And you may write, yeah, as the topic of today's presentation is DevSecOps. Yeah, we can do it using the DevSecOps methodology. So here is the slide that shows us the DevOps pipeline. It's rotated 8s. And DevSecOps, you see that it's the security implemented on top of the DevOps. That's why we can implement the security only on the DevOps pipeline when the DevOps methodology is implemented on the project. DevOps tools, DevOps mindset. That's why we are talking about the security as one of the elements of the DevOps pipeline. If we take a look why and security is important and take a look on the retrospective, in the 2019, there was introduced State of DevOps report by Puppet. And all this report was about security, was about the DevSecOps. Nowadays, State of DevOps report says that security is also important. For example, in this report from Google, we can see that 40% of all the information is related to security, to DevSecOps. And regarding the security nowadays, or security in the conferences, 2 weeks ago, Microsoft Ignite conferences started, and we may see the trends here about the security. So from 30 to 40% of all the talks, of all the information, all the discussions that were held in these conferences are about the security. And this is really important to understand that security is not the element of the software development that have to be implemented once and then forgot. No, it has to be in mindset, and we should start from the people. And I know that many of you have OLX accounts, LinkedIn accounts, Facebook accounts, email accounts, and I think maybe at least once many of you were hacked. So their social media accounts were hacked, or the emails were hacked. So you know what it is. And I have a story about the phishing attack that was occurred in one of my previous companies. That was around a couple of years ago when Bitcoin was cost around $10,000. And yeah, so once we have our CFO, Chief Financial Officer, and one day she received an email from the CEO where he asked her to send the money, send $50,000 to one of the clients. And he wrote as quickly as possible. Kate, she was the CFO, she asked the CEO, John, as he was sitting in front of her, hey, John, I received a mail from you and you're asking to send the money to the clients. Is it urgent? It's $50,000. And John said, what? I didn't send an email. What $50,000? And after that, they understood that that was a hacker attack. And I was involved in creating the report to understand what was the reason of this attack and how they managed to send this email. So I wrote the report. We, with our team members, made a big improvement of the security in the company. So what we did, we had talks with all the employees. We made tech talks about the security, how it is important, described this case. Then we started implementing of MFA, password complexity, and other security items to improve the security using the tools. But first, we started with the people. So the people should understand why it is important and how they might be hacked. And you may ask me, but what was the reason? So the reason was simple. Our assistant or sales assistant, Michelle, she received an email from CO, right? And there he asked her to log in into the system and asked to do some simple calls. And she did. She entered the link. Then she entered her credentials, and her account was compromised. After that, the hackers were able to receive control on her account and send the emails to other people and create a fake sales account. And you may know that this is this is a typical phishing attack in the companies, in different companies. And how can we avoid this thing? We can avoid this thing by using, and many other attacks, by DevSecOps. And many companies, they're thinking of the security nowadays still. For example, when they need to introduce to implement some security standards, for example, for healthcare, it's HIPAA, and they should be compliant with HIPAA if they want to make the software for healthcare. Then the second item is security audit, when the company needs to pass this audit and their clients are asking. So after that, they are passing the security audit and they think that their security journey is finished. Many companies want to introduce to implement the security after the security breach occurred. This is the third item. And the last one is the security improvement request, when the company understand that they need to be more secure, or they heard that some of their clients or some of their other companies were hacked, and they want to improve their security and not to be in the hacked list. So, and let's see how we can improve the security in software development with the shift-left focus. Shift-left strategy is not something new. It was introduced in 2000s in QA and then spread across the software development. And today we'll talk about a couple of things: the security in design development, security in CI, security in CD, and definitely production. And also we will cover how cloud could help us with security. So in design or development on local machine, we can have threat modeling tools installed. And when we're making the design, when we're making architecture of our new system, for example, 3-tier application, we need to design and understand what could be the risk factors from security point of view. And we built in this system our architecture. We understand what protocols we use, what database we use. And after that, we can see this tool can help us to see what are the vectors of attack and how can we improve our security? What should be the first, second, third? And this is the cool thing before we start even the software development. So we can understand what our weakest points and how we can improve them. So the second item is CI, and in CI there are different items we can focus on. It's the first one is static code analysis, and it's really important nowadays to use the static code analysis. There are different tools like SonarQube, it's most popular one, but GitHub Dependency Graph is the tool that can be enabled by 2 clicks, like one option and the second one, and it is enabled in your GitHub account. SonarQube is really cool software, and it has free version, and we can use this one, open source, to scan our software for bugs, for vulnerabilities. And with a SonarQube, you need to be aware that to implement this, you have to spend more time to design how we're going to check, to analyze our code. Why? Because if you put SonarQube implemented the CI and you didn't configure all the rules, all the required rules for you, for your development, there could be false positive alerts that nobody will notice them, and nobody won't care about these false positive alerts, because after some of them, people could think that, oh, I know this this won't work, or this is not a bug. We know about that. For example, if you won't configure, if you don't configure the system properly, the word password in your code will give the false positive results. Yeah, and the developers and the development team won't be happy about that. So you need to take the developers, maybe QAs also, sit with them and configure the rules properly, so you could understand what is going on and what alerts could be triggered. There is a story. It's really a static code analysis is a really cool feature that could help you to avoid one of the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities. It's software and data integrity problem. Maybe you know or remember the company SolarWinds, and it was they were hacked some years ago. And what was the problem? That hackers got access into their software development environment, and they committed the code that helped them to get access, remote access into the system in production. So they committed the code. Then this code was merged. Then their code was deployed in development, QA, in production. And in production, SolarWinds had a lot of clients, hundreds of clients, and all of them were hacked because the hackers had a remote access into their software, into the system. And that was a big problem. That was one of the biggest hackers attack using this vulnerability. So the second one is dependency security analysis, and you can know a lot of tools doing that, and I'll ask you to send me some other tools that you are using for dependency analysis to my social medias, for example. For me, it's really interesting to understand what you're using. And yeah, there are different open source or the tools that you need to pay for. But this resolves the problem when you have the outdated packages with vulnerabilities, and this system scans these packages and gives you that these packages have some vulnerabilities that could that hackers could use to get access into their system. Really important thing. And OWASP dependency check is an open source tool that you can integrate in your CI. Yeah. The next one is Docker, and as you might know, I think many of you are using Docker in your daily life, daily work. It is based on the OS image, yeah. First, so you get or you take OS image, and then on top of the OS image, you're installing your third-party libraries, your applications into the Docker, and you might need to understand what are the packages installed in the base OS image or the third party that you're using. Do they have vulnerabilities? So these tools, these open source tools, they can help you to define is your Docker image is safe to use? Do you need to update some packages into the image? Is there a vulnerability? To do that, you can just implement such image scanning into your CI system or maybe in your CD system. So the third one is infrastructure as a code, and we now we're talking about the CD, right? Continuous delivery or continuous deployment. And the infrastructure as a code security analysis is really important because as you might know, there are a lot of tools nowadays and instruments how to write this infrastructure code. For example, Terraform, yeah, it's most popular, but there is AWS CDK, Azure RM templates, Azure BSEP, or Polumni, and you need to scan all this code to understand maybe I by mistake committed the some secrets or variables, sensitive variables, and to avoid this, we need to make this scanning and integrate it into the CI or CD. The other thing that it is really important to implement in your environment, it's production, or let's say between UAT and production, or staging and production, it's penetration testing. There are different tools for this, like open source, OWASP, yeah, and others. So you can, I cannot say it is easily to implement this testing into your pipeline, into your CD pipeline, but still you can have the opportunity and possibility to do that, spending some time and configure these tools. And you will understand your system better to see that do we have the vulnerabilities in our production system or not? It's just to understand yes or no. Do we need to fix something? And the next I wanted to talk to you is about the clouds. Also, please send me any message in any of the channels, what tools, penetration testing tools you are using in your production system. It's clouds. And clouds give us a lot of opportunities to improve the security. For example, in clouds, you have a cool feature that calls activity events. And when you are deleting something, creating the resources, or editing the resources, all the all these are written into the database as logs, the cloud database, and from their database you can get the activity logs and to see the history of all the events in the system, activity events. For example, when we implemented this thing, what was our first problem? That we implemented and put all the events, and after that turn on to alert when any event in the system, in the cloud occurred. We got an email, and then we understood that we are getting the tons of emails, and after that we just put the events for creation resource and deletion resource. So that was really important for us, and that was not false positive events, and we were interested in these events. The next thing in cloud is cool is account management. As you might know, AWS and Azure, they recommend to put production system separately from the development, and into separate subscription, separate account. That's why we have to improve our security by splitting our resources into different subscriptions with different permissions. And as you might see in this slide, for example, each department have its own subscription, and that's okay. If the hacker got access into one of them, they will hack the resources only this subscription, and that's it. They won't get the access to other subscriptions. The next thing in cloud is cloud security posture management. This is the security improvement that clouds offers to their client, and you as the user for the cloud providers, you can see the security risks in your subscriptions. And for example, you can check what is what are the security risks for all of my resources. For example, these tools, they show you the events with high, medium, and low priority. And then you can understand, so I have to first fix the security alerts with high priority, then medium, then low. And the same thing with the security recommendations, the same thing is having other cloud providers and all the network solutions. So this is the trend to help the user to understand their vulnerabilities. For example, you can, here in these dashboards, you can click on the security event and see why it is important, and the description of this security event, and why I need to fix it right away and not in 6 months, for example. So the next thing is the secret management. I think you may know the 12-factor app, and that you need to store your code separately from the configuration. And cloud providers have really cool and important services like storing the secrets, certificates, and other sensitive information in their services. For example, in Azure it's Key Vault, in AWS it's Secret Manager, and there you can store your secrets, your sensitive information, and your application can consume this information directly from these services or using some integrations. That's the cloud, and it gives us a lot of important security features, and we can it's easier to develop the software in cloud. So let us see the DevSecOps tools map. I will show you for two cloud providers, it's Azure and it's AWS. So now you can see all the things we covered. For example, threat modeling, then GitHub security, then Snake or Trivy, then TFSec for infrastructure, then security center, as you see, some logging, monitoring, and OWASP ZAttack proxy is also implemented. So you might see that all these security tools are implemented, could be implemented in our CI/CD. For example, for AWS, there are different tools, different products from AWS side, but also the WASP, Snake are there, and AWS services. And you can understand that using the cloud, it gives you a lot of tools and a lot of knowledge how to improve your security, and do it using the best practices. If you create the resource today in cloud providers, you will be guide how to do that in a secure manner from scratch. Creating the EC2 instance, for example, in AWS. You'll need to create the security group. You will need to have the SSH access or restrict access by API from your machine. And the same in other clouds. So clouds help us to get the better approach how to manage our security. And let me tell you the story of the breach, one of the breach stories that was occurred a couple of years ago in one of my previous companies. That was related also to cloud security. And we did a lot of cool improvements for the security, for the cloud security. So once one of our colleagues, he had a task to implement Ansible to manage our instances on-premise and cloud instances, and he needed to build a proof of concept in a few weeks, and he made some testing with Ansible. What he did, he decided to create it in his own repository, GitHub repository, and did it public. So he committed all his Ansible code. He committed the access to the cloud using his personal credentials and using his credentials into the cloud. And he finished his work. Everything was working perfectly, but he forgot to delete these from public repository. And in a few days, we noticed, it was on Saturday, that we had a lot of virtual machines in our subscription. And that was around 100 virtual machines that were created by someone. Then we understood that that was from his personal credentials. And after that, we decided to mitigate these risks, because that was a hacker's attack. Maybe they created a virtual machine and started making some computations. That's why it is really important to avoid such risks. And we after that, we definitely removed deleted these virtual machines, blocked his user, and made investigation why it happened. We saw the activity logs, who did it, when did it, and from what country. So that was from Nigeria. And then we made a report to understand step by step what was the problem and how hackers did this. And for this issue or this hackers attack, that was the simple attack. They just scanned the public repository and found these keys. And yeah, so that was a breach. And after that, we understood the two things: that we need to start introduction of the security to the people. Yeah, start from people, not the tools. And we made the same as in my previous story. We started telling the story about the security, the risks, what is the security to our software developers, by software teams, to QAs and other people, that security is really important. And if they do not rely or do not want to implement security in their daily process, our company could be hacked, and somebody's account could be hacked with different hackers approaches. That's why, and that's the scheme that hackers used to hack us. Yeah, that they was just the money, so that's all about the money. But there are different variants why the hackers or other people could hack your company or hack your product. So that was the story. And now let's make a summary of what is important for the DevSecOps and why DevSecOps should focus on security, and what things matters. So the first one is we should track the top bugs and vulnerabilities to understand are we doing good? Yeah, it's if we having let's say we had in the past some bugs and vulnerabilities, how do we improve? Do we make any improvements, or we're having more bugs, more vulnerabilities in our product? Then the number of security problems and its rate. And yeah, this means in general, in security problems in software development, when we're making the software, it includes bugs, vulnerabilities, and also in production, and other components of our system. Reports from security testing, yeah, it's also really important to understand do we have the vulnerabilities in when we're making the security scan? Yeah, constantly. And the fourth one, the last one, is security events and metrics from production system. That's really important. I think this should be shown. This should show 0, yeah, because if you do a lot of preparation stuff, it will show you that you do not have the critical vulnerabilities in your production system. And yeah, that's the fourth point that you need to care about, because we are working, our clients, they are using our production systems, and production system is the top product that we are carries. And the next thing I wanted to say is DevSecOps is everyone's responsibility, and we need to implement DevSecOps practices in our daily work. Thank you, everybody. And if you want to talk about this topic, if it's interesting to you, you can find me in LinkedIn, in Facebook, and you can ask me any questions regarding the DevSecOps security, and maybe ask about the stories that I told you today. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice day. Bye.